Hi, everyone. I hope you have enjoyed Reach 2020 so far. I'm very happy to be here and share my thoughts and experiences around the brand as Demand Accelerator. I'm Dirk, and I work with the emerging technology and in future industries since almost 10 years. Here at Reflect, we work with augmented reality, building a new workplace, so a new way to work and learn, especially now with COVID, all these challenges of remote work and things like that. And then if you see my history, I used to build the digital innovation lab for Hyperloop, Elon Musk's transportation project. And there, we build a AI-powered marketplace. We used blockchain and biometrics for digital identity. And one of my favorite things is still when we're still building the augmented windows, which let you look outside of a windowless capsule of the Hyperloop. And why do I talk about that? It's because, if you work on all of these new things, you start and learn to appreciate the value of a brand. It really helps you to jump into these new fields and grow with the time. And that's why what I want to share about, what are the challenges there in emerging tech and future industries. How does it work with the audiences, and what kind of transition do you have there? Market engineering as the foundation for your brand. It's super important, the segmentation, beachhead, understanding your customers and customers' behavior. And then, of course, we talk about what is now the impact of the brand. I want to use Geoffrey Moore's concept of crossing the chasm as the basis to explain about what I mean with the audiences. And what you see here is that we have on the left side the early markets, and on the right side the mainstream markets, and both kind of split into different segments with different buyers / end users. And in the middle of that, you have the chasm. So that chasm you have to cross when you start and kind of transition from the early to the mainstream markets. And that can be a challenge. And that's exactly why we talk about the brand and the impact of the brand. And, while when you are in the early markets, it's a lot about technologies, it is about features, it is about evaluation. The innovation labs doing their evaluations, they have their spreadsheets and all of that stuff. While when they then go to the mainstream markets, there you meet the pragmatic buyers and you need solutions. They need to be enterprise ready when you are in the B2B sector, which we are as a software company. And it's a lot about the value. So you have kind of two different audiences. You have kind of two different markets. You could almost say you need to have two different companies. And the green bubble show, you have the audience with the early markets. You have the dark green button circle with the mainstream markets. And then during that phase of the chasm, you have kind of both, which is challenging because you need to have the communications and the messaging and everything in that transition. Now, in the end, what you need to grow and to scale and to make that shift is you need relevance, you need credibility, and then of course you need demand. Now, in a nutshell, what I showed in the first slide is that you need to understand your market and that shift in the audience. You need to grow with your customers from early to mainstream. And you use your brand to drive relevance and credibility and demand. So the first step is the market engineering. And I know that this is often underrated and underestimated. It's just often, in startups, we don't have time, but even in companies, there's not that much resources that you spend a lot of time on that. And most people, they don't dive deep into a market research. just because it's kind of a project. It's a one-time thing and it's done, and you put it into your drawer and you probably never find it. But it's so important, and I just published an article about that because I thought, hey, it's such a broad topic. Why can't we break it down into 3 steps and use frameworks? Frameworks make our life much easier because we don't have much time and we need the guidelines. And that's what I did. So what you can use is I have Bill Aulet's a framework. I have here the market opportunity navigator. I have test cards from Strategizer. So I kind of mixed the different frameworks. And it's a lot about, collect your market and applications opportunities. What you see here in the market opportunity navigator on the left side in that kind of basket, in the kind of bag where you put everything in, and that can be, 30, 40, 50, or even more opportunities. So avoid to have that tunnel vision. You say, all right, I'm doing software for XYZ, and there's only like 5 market opportunities or 5 application fields. Don't do that. And then, you can use in the whole process things like what I have with the test cards. Why? It's because in the emerging technology, new markets, blue oceans, often you don't find the data. Often, there is not enough data to be relevant. So you have to come up with hypotheses and somehow to validate them and get your own data with the time. That's what we did when we started with AR like 7-8 years ago. There was not even a market. There were like 2-3 companies doing that. And it was hard to explain who is the audience there, what is the market. So we had to work with hypothesis and build on that, and then collect the data, and over the time, then kind of build a kind of a data set. And then the next step is, of course, step 2, narrow the market down to 5 to 10 opportunities or applications. And here are the 7 questions from Bill Aulet. This is a great framework to do that. And then in the next step, it's like, bowling. You have to hit that one pin in the front. And that's your beachhead. That's where you start. And then, you check whether you can hit some others in the background without any additional effort. And that's the way how you can find your market, especially in a new market. And I talked about the audiences, and that's for me, the most important part. So your market. Now you have to understand the customer's behavior, and of course we all do that. But here, with the concept of the chasm and having these 2 different audiences, on the left side, you have the innovation managers, you have R&D managers, and they have a completely different view on your product compared to the pragmatic buyers like a CIO or a business manager. And business manager is, of course, a broad kind of description. There can be a head of training, there can be the VP of VR, HR, it can also be an IT manager. But the concept is your audience is going to change, and you have to cover both, and you have to understand exactly, what needs to happen with your brand, and what does your brand need to deliver that also, that the sales team then can leverage your brand to sell faster and easier. On the right side, what you see, this is an example from our company where we have the ID customer profile. I really wrote down what kind of customers do we have there, and then a kind of persona. I'm not that focused on making that super beautiful. I'm not a designer, but going down really to the basics and having every detail in it. Now, when you have your beachhead, you have your audience, well, then you can bring that together and build your positioning, which is then, of course, the basis for your brand messaging, right? That's the first part of it. And of course, we know a brand is not only a message, brand is not only a visual, brand is not only a logo. A brand is much more, right? It's about culture, it's about your team, it's about, how do different audiences perceive you and your company. This is a simple framework to build a positioning statement. But it's not enough to just have one kind of a claim, which is not a claim, the positioning statement, but it looks like a claim at the end. You need to do more. And that's what I have on the right side. That's our messaging matrix. So you describe every little point there, every little topic in detail, and then share it. Share it with your team, share it with a couple of customers. It's kind of the same as what the product does. We do in marketing. We have beta testers, and we share our messaging. We share parts of the website, of the emails, and ask them, hey, what do you think about that? We get really, really great feedback. And then once you have done that, well, then you can build on your brand. And of course, the brand is not something you just build over the weekend. It's something you need time to build that. But now you have everything. You have the foundation to build the brand. And what I really, really, really like is, people always say, hey, yeah, the demand side, the lead gen side, you can measure that. They come up with a lot of data, and then in the brand, well, it's not measurable, right? And yes, in some way, it's hard to measure. Yeah, you can use online visits and things like that, no problem. But now here it comes. What does the brand do? The brand helps you to be relevant. The brand helps you to build trust. The brand helps you to build credibility. And that helps the demand side, and especially the sales team, to sell faster, easier, and at lower cost. So at the end, the brand is your demand and accelerator, and therefore also measurable and with a big impact on the demand side. I listed a couple of things here which are relevant and which you need to do that. So what is the impact of your brand? We have on the left side the trust and the credibility, and at the bottom we have the demand side. And then you can see how different things which you use from your brand marketing then to drive that. While, brand building, that's one thing. That's what was the first part we talked about in the marketing and market engineering. And now, of course, it's also about the brand marketing. How do you get that out, and how do you use that to spread the word about your brand and your company? And that's what you see here. You have media coverage. That's how you transport your brand in one way. They have builds trust, of course, because when others talk about you, of course, that gives you more trust and more credibility than when you talk about it. Because when you talk about it, it's usually advertisement and commercials. But then there are other things which drive also more demand, being a trusted vendor, a thought leader, appearing in analyst reports on these landscapes. And then, of course, all the topic around word of mouth, because that brings you a lot of relevance, that brings you a lot of trust and credibility and demand. I want to highlight the three different parts of it. On one side, now we have the KPI here, which is the first step, the relevance. We have the input and we have the output. And in order to build relevance, what do you need for that? It's your brand promise. What's behind your brand? It's a lot about your team and the appearance of the company. And of course, you can use media for that. And the result of that is that you land on the radar of your customers. You go on to the vendor list of your customers, and you are considered as a relevant player, and that helps, of course, to increase the sales opportunities because you are visible, and you're visible as an important player there. Right. So it's not only about the awareness, it's about the relevance and being automatically listed on your customer's vendor selection list. The second thing is about trust. So once you have the relevance, and the next step, you need to build trust. Yes, if you sell into enterprises, or it's the same for mid-sized companies, then you need to be a trusted vendor. Otherwise, you have these long cycles where a company checks whether you are capable of doing what they're looking for, whether your product is capable of doing that, and you end up in a very long sales cycle. Now, with a brand, you can help the sales team, to go faster through that process. If you show the skills, you build the relationships, you have the right appearance as a trusted vendor. It makes it much easier for your sales team as an entry point. You get the awareness with the different analysts and researchers, which helps you a lot to be on their reports, and that automatically builds then the trust. And I can tell you, I have a lot of examples. We have one large customer who is one of the leading medical device manufacturers, so a large medtech company, and they found us through one of these analyst reports, and everything we provided there, and together with our brand and the relevance we showed, the first deal was very, very fast. It was kind of within 2 months we kicked it off from zero, and just because we did not have to go through the whole typical process, because they considered us as a trusted vendor. And then the third thing is, and that helps you, of course, also to reduce the acquisition cost, is have the credibility. If you become a thought leader, if you have these maps of the from the analysts, and if you share everything through word of mouth, or not you, but others, it's the same as when you buy something on Amazon, right? And you read through that, and you get recommendations from friends, from people you trust. Then they have that credibility as a testimonial. It's much easier. You don't look so much into details anymore. You don't maybe go into each detail of the product anymore. You just say, well, this is a company, or this is a product which helps me to solve my problem, and and that's going into the right direction. There's the right company behind it. There's the right team behind it, and that helps you, of course, in a vendor selection, and helps the team to save time, because they don't have to do all the effort. So that these are the three points. You can sell faster, easier, and at lower cost. And if you now bring that into a kind of flywheel, then you start with the market engineering. Its first point is the market, and that gives you a better foundation for your brand, because you know exactly whom you have to target, and then you have your brand. You have your brand to build the trust and the relevance and the credibility, and that triggers then the demand, helps to accelerate the demand. And the great thing is the feedback from the demand side helps you, of course, again, to go more detailed in your market engineering. So the more you invest, it's kind of the flywheel. It's up to you how much velocity you have, how much input you have. The more you spend on market engineering, the more you spend on your brand, the more impact you have, of course, on the demand side. And I find that a very, very a good way to use your brand to help the demand side to grow, and then, of course, as always, to generate revenue. I want to close the session with a cool statement from one of the most known founders, Mark Benioff, founder and CEO of Salesforce. And he said, "Brand is not just a logo; it's your most important asset." And you can see, as an example, how Salesforce did that when they started. They looked a lot for the brand. They have a fantastic marketing plays. And by the way, I'm always a fan of book recommendations. So if you want to read a book about that, also the importance and the relevance of the brand, then have a look on Mark Benioff's book, Behind the Cloud. That's a really cool one. And so I hope you enjoyed my talk. I hope I could show you about how you use your brand as an accelerator. It gives you a better understanding. Also, marketing gives you, an easier way to communicate. Why is it important to have the brand to management, to your CEO? And hey, feel free to reach out if you need anything. You find me on LinkedIn. You find me on Twitter. You can have a look at the article I just described here on my website. I'm happy to be in touch with you. Enjoy the rest of Reach. Looking forward to meeting you somewhere once we can get back to the new normal or any kind of normal. Enjoy. Have a great day. Stay safe and healthy. Thank you.